Well, in May, Forbes said this guy was worth $150 million. But now 50 Cent doesn't have two quarters to rub together.
I remember reading headlines about 50 Cent's financial troubles and thinking there was something incredibly tragic about the man that released Get Rich or Die Trying going bankrupt. However, on last check, 50 Cent was actually still alive, which did make me think that maybe there was slightly more to the bankruptcy story than meets the eye. In order to truly understand what happened, we need to go way back to 2008, at the start of his feud with everybody's favorite wing-slinging, fake drug-dealing rapper, Rick Ross.
He's my brother and I love him like myself. He's my brother and I love him like no.
It was actually Rick Ross that started off the beef by saying that 50 Cent looked at him some kind of way at the BET Awards.
At the BET Awards, and I bumped into him. He made an expression on his face that kind of disappointed me.
Like, what kind of expression?
It's deeper than rap, baby.
50 responded saying he didn't even see Rick Ross at the awards, which I think is hard to believe considering that Rick Ross weighs 350 pounds. Now, Ricky Ross made the beef official when he released the song Mafia Music, which fired a few shots at 50 Cent for allegedly burning down his baby mama's house.
Curtis Jackson, baby mama, I ain't asking for a cent. Burn the house down, you gotta buy another. Don't forget the gas can, jealous stupid motherfucker.
January 29th, 2009, and 50 Cent comes out with a response to Mafia Music, his own disc called Officer Ricky.
Officer Ricky, radio for backup.
The next day, Rick Ross calls into Angela Yee's show and says that that response is trash and 50 has 48 hours to respond with something better.
24 hours later.
Rick Ross, I'ma fuck your life up for fun. I paid for the transcripts to your court case. And now that I got your address, we'll be on your doorstep, Ricky.
On that same day, 50 also releases the first episode of his Officer Ricky cartoon series.
Damn, Rick, why you got me up in this motherfucker, man? Is it because I said you and your mama look like the Clumps?
A couple of days later, 50 is sticking true to his promise of fucking up Rick Ross's life for fun.
Hello, hi, I'm Tia, the mother of Rick Ross's son.
50 starts out the video by saying that what you're about to see is
something that is a little bit more sophisticated than what we've been offering in the past.
Which I think is a massive disservice to 50 Cent's other work. I mean, this video is so lowbrow, it makes Candy Shop look like the Beethoven Symphony. In the video, the mother of Rick Ross's child calls out Ross for having rented jewelry and leased cars.
His jewelry is rented, possibly not real. His cars are being leased.
And he takes her fur shopping whilst Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder plays. You cannot make this shit up. 50 also takes the opportunity to call out Rick Ross's other baby mama for being a cool girl. A few days after that, Rick Ross releases the diss song Kiss My Pinky Ring, Curly.
I'm so hard, I'm so sharp, taking bitches shopping, scared to get a blowjob.
This song's accompanied by a music video of Rick Ross hanging out in New York with some miscellaneous goons. This song also featured what felt like several hundred lyrics accusing 50 Cent of being gay.
Homo fag, dildos in your mouth.
An allegation which seemingly becomes a big part of this beef from both sides.
Faggot, faggot. Cal is a faggot too.
2 days after that, it's the 8th of February, and 50 Cent is dropping more content than Netflix. He puts out Officer Ricky episode 2, which shows how Rick Ross got a deal from Jay-Z. He then drops the first of a series of new comedy segments featuring a character that he's created called Pimpin' Curly.
He said the motherfucker down south calling me Curly.
This is basically just 50 Cent wearing a curly wig while shrieking about how much of a pimp he is and threatening Rick Ross on camera with a knife.
Officer motherfucking Ricky, nigga, when I get you, I'm gonna cut you.
Then, along with his crew G-Unit, 50 Cent releases I'll Be the Shooter, which features so many shout-outs of different types of guns, the song might as well have been recorded in T.I.'s trunk. In response to this, Rick Ross essentially copies 50's idea of the animated diss video and releases his own version called Gay Unit Workouts, which I'm sure even the slowest of viewers can work out what that means. This entire video is basically just calling out G-Unit members for being gay. It also disses 50 Cent for allegedly using steroids, and also for some reason Rick Ross decided that this video was the perfect place to debut his new single with John Legend, Magnificent, over visuals of a cartoon G-Unit having a three-way gangbang. That same day, Rick Ross drops the diss track Push 'Em Over the Ledge, which is basically a 2-minute juice freestyle, mainly consisting of, you guessed it,
homo gay.
He mentions one specific rumor of G-Unit member Lloyd Banks being in a gay porno.
You sucked your assistant dick on tape, Google it.
Which I did a lot of digging on, and I couldn't seem to find any evidence for that. But there was one, a guy that looks a little bit like Lloyd Banks appeared in a gay porno. The next day, 50 Cent puts out a video that's probably the most menacing thing I've ever seen in a hip-hop beef. I mean, this thing makes the story of Adidon look like the story of Balamori. He releases the video, A Psychic Told Me.
This little poem I wrote for DJ Khaled. Check this shit out, right? It's called I Just Want to Tell You What a Psychic Told Me. Your car tires got stabbed out. Now you know, I know where you be. I know where your mama house at. I know where your mama work at. Now look at her, sleep.
To make this even more spicy, we later found out that the person that actually filmed this was French Montana. He's even seen in one of these videos wearing a This Is 50 t-shirt, which he can't blame on his stylist.
I style, no stylist.
Over the next month, these two trade shots back and forth over diss tracks and animated videos. 50 goes on to drop several more cartoons which don't just clown Rick Ross, but also go after T.I., DMX, Suge Knight, and Chris Brown. But it's on March the 17th that 50 made the ultimate mistake that would eventually wind him up in bankruptcy. 50 Cent actually leaks a sex tape starring Rick Ross's other baby mama, Brooke, with an introduction of himself in character as Pimpin' Curly and commentary throughout the entire video.
Ricky.
I personally don't think it's right or legal to show you any of that tape, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you some of 50's commentary over some very innocent stock footage.
This look like she can suck some dick. She bobbing and weaving, Ricky. Oh, she getting the balls. Ooh, going down here. No condom. Is that baby yours, Ricky?
6 days after the sex tape leak, on March 23rd, Rick Ross came out with a very unusual video, essentially saying sorry not sorry to the gay community.
I heard that I offended the homosexual community. I apologize. I'm offering to do a record with an openly gay artist such as 50 Cent. We all know he's gay, so now all the gays we good.
Later, Rick Ross drops his long-awaited album, Deeper Than Rap. Now the album is out and there's very little to be gained from beefing. These two kind of lose interest in each other. During that time, 50 seems to get closer to Rick Ross's baby mama Tia, helping her release her own tell-all biography. But things get really savage in November, where seemingly out of nowhere, 50 decides to take Rick Ross's baby mama and his kids to Floyd Mayweather's house.
On real big boss things,
You want to get into it?
I've got to say, it's pretty painful to watch. I mean, it seems like 50 Cent treats Ross's kids better than his own.
Give me my money, you little traitor. I thought you was down with me.
February 25th, 2010, and Rick Ross's baby mama Brooke brings a court case against 50 Cent for leaking that sex tape. This court case takes an entire 5 years to get resolved. During that time, the 50 and Ross beef simmers, and a few things happen here and there that are quite interesting. Ross publicly suffers from some seizures, gunplay from Rick Ross's Maybach Music crew gets beaten up by G-Unit at an award show, and 50 Cent is pictured wearing his Maybach Music chain at a bowling alley a few days later. 50 clowns Rick Ross for getting his car shot up, and Rick Ross gets accused of pistol whipping his groundskeeper, who is later pictured on Instagram with 50 Cent. 5 years go by, and it's in July 2015 that court case finally gets resolved and 50 loses. The court order 50 to pay $5 million to Brooke for the sex tape leak and $2 million in punitive damages. 3 days after losing that case, 50 Cent files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, it's important to realize that there's a big difference between filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Chapter 11 is more about reorganizing your assets so that you can then end up making the payments that you owe, whereas Chapter 7 is a lot more about admitting that there's no way you can pay your payments. However, this didn't stop Rick Ross and the whole world from clowning on 50.
If my first album was titled Get Rich or Die Trying and I filed bankruptcy, I guess his kidneys failed.
50 Cent even got in on some of the action, mocking the idea of him being bankrupt, which actually caused him to get hauled back into court to explain himself. 50 told the court that the money in the pictures and his whole lavish lifestyle was actually fake. 50 Cent's money woes didn't last very long. By 2017, only 2 years after losing that court case, 50 was actually able to pay off his entire $22 million debt 5 years early. So if you think 50's broke, 50 ain't broke. But how the hell did 50 suddenly get all of this money to pay these debts? 50 didn't just go bankrupt from losing the sex tape case. He'd also been in and out of court with Sleek Audio based on a dispute around the SMS audio headphones deal that he had going on. 50 had originally partnered with Sleek to engineer the headphones, but he later left them and ended up doing a deal with somebody else. Sleek sued him and won, and he ended up owing them $17 million for the development of these headphones. Add that to the outstanding amount that he had to pay Brooke for the sex tape lawsuit. In December 2016, 50 actually won a court case against the lawyers who had represented him in the original Sleek Audio case that he lost. By winning that case against his lawyers, he got $14.5 million, which he then combined with his own funds of $8.3 million to basically pay off the entire outstanding debt and get out of bankruptcy. Hot off the heels of that win, he decided to sue the lawyers from his sex tape case as well. Specifically, he argues that they failed to interview Rick Ross about leaking the sex tape before 50 did. Furthermore, he claimed that there was actually a conflict of interest between an old lawyer that 50 had in 2004 and Rick Ross's current lawyer. As far as I can tell, that court case is currently unresolved, but what I could find was that 50 is looking for $32 million from this case. Even though 50 beat bankruptcy, we can assume that he learned his lesson and he will never leak a sex tape ever again. Okay, I'm done. I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe below. Hit that notification bell so you can see every single time I upload. And if you've been enjoying my work lately, I definitely recommend that you go and check out the Patreon account I've started. There's some really cool benefits on there that I think you will definitely like, and I would really appreciate your support so I can keep making these videos and hopefully I can upload more often. Thanks very much and peace out.